three. 1, 2, 3. Let's go.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special Teaching Crypto. Yes, normally we don't come at you on a Tuesday morning, but we had to come on because of the Bitcoin explosion yesterday. Please hit that like, that subscribe, bell notification, super chats. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Any way you can support the show, even just by sharing, we would love it as we try to hit our subs up higher as Bitcoin goes higher. So, MrFOMO, we finally got our October as we've been calling for now. We both kind of were around. I know you're a little bit higher than me, 33K. We not really got 33K, MrFOMO. The question is, can we now get to 35K as money pours in, as more rumors come in that ETFs are getting closer? At this point, it's only a matter of time. It's just, is it in 2023 or is it 2024? But this is happening before an ETF is official. That's got to give you a lot of optimism.
Yeah, I really was surprised to see it pop that quickly. I mean, we just talked about it yesterday. We've been talking about it all month, and we talked about it in September that we expected to see some upward action in October. You can go back and look at our headlines about October and all that we put in there. But we were calling for 34 before the end of the month, and here we are. And so I think that we should give ourselves a little bit of credit for letting people know that, hey, this was going to happen. People were going to come back from the Halloween indicator, their summer break from investing, if you will. But you also saw other risky assets and other assets that are sort of akin to crypto get a bump too. I mean, gold even saw a bump. And so, this is a good sign all around. But we called this and it happened. And so, now we start to look at levels above here, and you see some of the chart guys that we follow on X, and some of them are saying that there's just air between here and 40K. I disagree. There's some local levels that we still have to break through. So I don't think we'll just see a straight line to 40K. But this is definitely a good sign, and we were worried that it might not get to this point by the end of the month, but here we are 24 hours later, and it's there.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens over the next 3 to 4 days. I had given up on my 40K prediction. Remember, over the summer, I misjudged August, but now I redeemed myself of October here, and I really thought 40K was in play, but I didn't think we would hold 40K. I thought we would retrace around the holidays. So could we get to 40K by Thanksgiving? It's definitely possible. Now, I would say be careful, though, because I don't think this is going to last the rest of the year. Me and you both see a cold December coming into January, and then I think we're going to heat up. So if you were on the sideline and did not buy Bitcoin, I would carefully, not financial advice, DCA in slowly and wait for another dip. It might come in 2 weeks. It might come in 3 weeks. It might come in 4 weeks. It might come in 5 weeks. But it's doubtful that we're going straight to 40, then 50, then 60 into the halving. That's probably not what's going to happen. But let me say this. This just shows you how much the ETFs could affect the market. Once one gets approved, everything else comes in. You're possibly talking about not only hundreds of millions, but maybe well over $1 trillion of market cap entering Bitcoin and crypto. At that point, 50K is very, very realistic before the halving. So I think we have to be careful and just assume, oh, well, it's not going to do that much before the halving. ETF gets approved well before April 1st of 2024, and economic conditions improve a little bit. Maybe, hopefully, let's cross our fingers, we see some peace around the world. Who knows? You could easily, in my opinion, see a 45K Bitcoin before the halving. But you also could see Bitcoin get close to 40K, get rejected, and go all the way back down in the low 30s too. That's a possibility. So I'm very curious to see what happens over the next week or so, leading us into November.
And to be honest with you, I'm excited because, I talked to friends of mine who are financial advisors every once in a while. And when I talk to them about the ETF, they say that they are actually gearing up to offer that to their clients,
Wow.
to offer access to their clients. You hear these banks are going to start being able to offer, or they're going to start being able to access it through institutions. But once it's cleared to the retail investors, these banks aren't stupid. They're going to offer it to their retail investors. And you're going to see an explosion, not just with people trying to access Bitcoin through the regular crypto market, but you're going to see people now going to their banks and asking their advisors to give them access to this ETF. And so, before I kind of poo-pooed the idea that this would be an explosive event for Bitcoin, but now it's looking like this ETF race is, nothing to shake a stick at. I also want people to remember that some of this is on the back of 114 short squeezes yesterday. You've got people out there who are trying to get back the money they lost in squeezes last week. They went in and shorted Bitcoin again. They got burned again. I wouldn't be surprised to see them keep playing that game and see Bitcoin keep rising. Bitcoin isn't just moving on one factor all the time. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of retail investors sitting on the sidelines. There are a lot of banks that want to give their customers access, but safely, to Bitcoin. There's loads of things in here that are factoring in. And I just think that with all of that, especially with those gamblers trying to catch up, on the catch up, I think that you've got a situation where we could see it exploding a little bit more. And so hopefully that's what happens before we get into that November, December dip, the holidays, where people start to sell off their assets to pay for things. But what I like to see is all this excitement around it. And if you look, I'm going to go ahead and close out your chart, share mine. If you look at coin market cap, you can see up there in the top right corner, you have the fear and greed index is all the way to 67. That's an 18-point rise in just a few days on the fear and greed index. So people are definitely getting super excited about crypto, about Bitcoin. And so I expect to see more people come FOMOing in, like we told them not necessarily to do, because we can see it turning down. But I expect to see a little bit more before we head into November, December.
Yeah, great point. I just want to talk about some of the coins that have been moving over the past week, and is that an indicator for the bull run coming up? So if your favorite token hasn't done anything over the past 4 or 5 days, that might be a sign. Might I want to say, because this is pre-halving, that it might not do that amazing in the next bull run.
Well, I have the chart set up here over the last 7 days, and there's some interesting tokens. I mean, you have to forget about these stable coins in the middle, but you've got Huobi over here who hasn't moved at all in the last 7 days. And we were talking before the show about how that could be concerning when the market's pumping right now. You look at some of these tokens that aren't moving and you think, gosh, is that an indicator of what could come in the next bull run for some of these projects? And you start to get here further down, you see projects like Tron, who've had some, negative attention in the past. Some of these projects like meme coins like Shiba Inu, which has a huge community, it's surprising to see it not moving that much over the last 7 days. But you see coins like Terra Classic down here not moving, and you think there might be some credence to that idea that, during this quick pump leading into the halving event, if you're not seeing your token move, you're not seeing some of these tokens move, that may be an indicator that in the bull run, they might not be the horses you want to be backing. And there's some concerning names in here, like we talked about. There's BNB, Algorand, Uniswap. These are some big projects, only moving 8% over the last 7 days. Now, is
8% not horrible.
Is this a crystal ball into the future? No, but when you look at what other projects are doing, we'll go ahead and flip it around. Over the last 7 days, you've got some of these projects, 150%, obviously, for some of the smaller market caps, but Injective is one we've talked about before.
Yes.
So another meme
bring that
coin,
up.
Pepe, is up 47%. Compare that to Shiba Inu, who's only up 7%. Now, I know Shiba has a way bigger market cap, but still, Chainlink, Aave,
Stacks
Stacks is down here, 30%, Solana. And so you have a lot of these projects that are moving quite a bit. And when you're not seeing that excitement out of those projects now, it could be an indicator of something to come in the next bull run, but it's definitely something you want to keep an eye on. Especially with things like Algorand, being marked by the SEC as a security and not knowing what's happening with that moving forward. There's just some things that we keep an eye on that we wanted to make you aware of.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the week. Like Multiverse X is almost up 20% over the past week. So that some of the ones we do like have done okay. But again, I just realized this too. I think we also need to look at the next 3 to 4 days, because if Bitcoin stabilizes around 34 to 35K, we'll see what money pours into what alt as well over the next week or so. So
Right.
that also could be
You're
interesting.
saying that people are going to take some profits out of Bitcoin and move that over to the alts, and you'll see some of the dominance.
Maybe a little bit. Now, not
Maybe.
like next spring,
Right.
okay, but a little bit. I'm curious to see. A lot of people are still high on Chainlink, and let me just be honest. I do have some Chainlink right now.
Well,
I'm curious to
that's a
see
good one
what
to point out.
happens.
That's a good one to point out, because it was already moving, then Bitcoin started moving, and it kept moving, right? Like it had every reason to stall out, even though Bitcoin was moving, because it had already seen some great action, but it kept on going even with Bitcoin.
I mean, in the last week, Chainlink is up 40%, and that's obviously a much older token than some of the ones you mentioned. So it's not necessarily all the new tokens. Like I said, Multiverse X is doing well, but Solana has done amazing. Okay, but look at something like XRP, and it's okay, but it's only up 7% this month, 11% for the week. Not bad, but you would think something like XRP, which has gotten so much good news over the past 3 months, would pump a little bit higher. So a little bit, just some stuff on my antenna. Uh, Caspa is an interesting one. Mr. FOMO's covered that one before, and I think we should talk about portfolios again soon, because we're getting closer and closer to the halving, Mr. FOMO. You definitely want to have high exposure, not financial advice, to Bitcoin, and then you want to treat the alts kind of like toilet paper. You use them when you need them, and when you've gotten profits, move on to the next. You don't want to be married to some. Now, obviously, if you believe in something over the next 12 to 15 months and you have a realistic price target, sure, go for it. But at the same time, you want to be flexible. You don't want to be married to, in my opinion, just one thing for the alts. Be open. If there's a lot of research, a new alt comes up and it has great market cap and there's some interest in there and it's easy to get, those are things that you want to be open to, and that's why you want to tune into the show. And now, really quickly, here's my thing. I'm going to watch the news cycle very, very carefully with the ETFs here, because if we actually get true full confirmation that ETF has been approved, then I think you're going to see 40K. Okay. Then I think you're going to see 40K. And then the question is, what is the retrace before the halving? Because if the retrace is only back to 35, that gives you a huge base to bounce off to. And I think you're talking about all-time highs very early in the next post halving. And then the 120 and above seems a lot more legitimate than the 90K and above, because that's kind of still where I'm at. But I'm open to 120 to 150 if a lot of things go right here.
Well, I mean, finding out that Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX and Alameda were holding the price, conspiring to hold the price and using billions of dollars to do it during the last bull run, definitely gives me a lot of hope for the next bull run. But we've talked about how conditions will be drastically different as far as cash on hand for retail investors. And so I'm interested to see how those two things wash out. See which one it was more dominant on the market the last time than the other. But there's no guarantees that we don't have somebody else doing that, right? Like there's no guarantees, and there's no.
Well, but that was during the bear market, though, and I think
we still haven't had confirmation on some of the things that CZ has been accused of, and so there's still players out there, at least internationally, that could cause problems in the market, and so. Now that bigger players, governments are paying more attention, I think it'll be less likely. But there is still that chance without regulation that we could see
Well,
players
we're
like that
still
manipulating the
we're
market.
still kind of 5 months away from the halving, so we're not going straight up. I wish we were one of those shows that say, all right, that's it, 100 next, 200 next. When is it happening? Is it 30? No, it's not gonna. It's gonna be a roller coaster ride until April 1st, and then mostly ups, but still some downs after that. But it's good to see the market show some strength, and I'm very curious to see, like I said, keep it here, because I think the next 48 to 72 hours are going to tell you a lot, because if we keep going higher, that means there is a lot of liquidity willing to come in. So even if there is, like we anticipate, a retrace around the holidays, that money will come back just as fast, I think, in February leading into April. And then you're going to see, if you see ETFs approved left and right in early 2024 leading into the halving, and the Fed talks about cutting rates. They don't have to cut the rates. They could just announce they are coming 2024. I think you will see Bitcoin, as we say, boom. But keep it here. And remember, there's never a horrible time to take profits depending on your situation. You have to make that decision for yourself. For Mr. FOMO, this is AZcrypto. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
I missed it. See ya.